Hello, this is First Fire Non-Assault Move. Welcome back to the 24th video in the War in the East series. Let's get a situation report. So let's start with the date. It is now April, the first week of April. And let's look at the weather. Mud. Yes, I never thought I would welcome mud. I am ecstatic that it is mud because all offensive operations will essentially have ceased and we won't suffer from the snow effects. Essentially, I executed 3 weeks of March. They were all back-to-back snow weeks, snow weather across all these three regions, which really affect us as our front stretches north to south. Primarily, we're not up in here yet, but primarily it's the Central Soviet Zone and the South Soviet Zone. And now we have mud. The last 3 weeks, it was all snow, and it's starting to thaw. It was locked in at 10, ice level 10, but now the ice is starting to thaw. All right, so that's the date and the weather. Let's look at the front. I haven't done my aerial recon. Well, let's recap what happened the last 3 weeks. Not much at all. I'll just give you a quick look at the losses screen. From the Soviets' last turn, we lost 12,000 men. Soviets lost 60,000. So a steady decline in losses. The Soviets have attacked far less. And our tank losses, our AFE losses, have been almost minuscule because largely our Panzer Corps have remained in place, getting airdrops, getting supplies as they could arrive from the railroads. And we didn't engage in any combat, so our tank force is going to be in pretty good shape. Unfortunately, we couldn't do anything about mitigating the losses we received in our infantry divisions. That was just, couldn't avoid that because of the Soviet winter offensive and that damnable 1941 winter special rule. But over the past 4 weeks, there's been a steady decline in our losses in men and material, which is fantastic. We are now beginning the initial stages of the pre-offensive buildup for 1942. And unfortunately, I still don't have a plan for that offensive. Well, I'll qualify that. I do have a 70% plan. I have doing some mission analysis. I have 2 courses of action I'm contemplating. But we'll get a recap first of the front. Soviets are being a pain here. They've shuffled in more troops than I expected they would have. Sorry for the interruption. So the Soviets have shuffled in more troops than I expected they would, and they're actually attacking more than I expected they would, which I had to take steps. So I brought in three, I think it was at least 2 infantry divisions that we received as reinforcements, and I attached it to our corps here that are holding the northernmost sector of Army Group North. So the lines are going to stiffen, and the Soviets aren't going to accomplish much now with mud, so we're going to get a little bit of a breather. Unfortunately, if it was going to be snow, I was going to attack here and straighten the line, but there's going to be a little something there, so we're going to have to, I don't know, we'll block them off here. But it's going to give our infantry time to dig in this part of the sector. And the Soviets made no headway whatsoever anywhere else on the front, to even include our poor, hard-pressed Axis miners. This was from this is from last week, 2 weeks ago. Still recovering. Take your time. It's been a hellacious winter. 4th Romanian Infantry Division, you did an incredible job. Rest, refit, enjoy the mud while it lasts, because you will be called upon in the next month or so. You're going to be vital to our war effort here in the East. So, again, Soviets didn't accomplish very much. Excuse me. Before I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, I just wanted to point something out. Let's do an aerial recon real quick. I want to show you something. A phenomena that is a little irritating. And I'll show you what I mean. Alright, number one. This directly impacts one of our courses of action. The Soviets have stopped. I don't know if their spidey senses are tingling, because they are starting to I guess now they're probably going over to a defensive posture, and they're starting to defend in depth, which really is ticking me off, because I wanted them bunched up, stacked as high as they could go, right up flush against me, because it will make a breakthrough far easier, and it would be far easier to encircle them. But now, well, maybe they're not savvy to our plans, and they just have so many stinking units that they can't fit them up to the front, so they're just leaving them back here. But I think, Stavka has some some sense, and is keeping some operational reserves, knowing the Germans are going to resume the offensive once good weather comes around. So that's annoying. All right, let's talk, kind of jumping around, but let's talk about this. All right, we'll go backwards. Let's start with course of action Bravo. Let's do an aerial recon in this sector. Oop, gotta do that. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? A very thin Soviet line in comparison to this, and no operational reserve, and they've emptied the Warrens in Leningrad. I think they've all made it to the front, and believe it or not, there is the Soviet manpower is not infinite. Sometimes it seems that way, but they received a lot of divisions as 1941 waned. They received a lot of their own reinforcements, and they've been pressed into action. They've made it to the front, so there is no strategic reserve here, because the Soviets are clever. They've been doing their own aerial recon, and they realize that I don't have any forces that would indicate I was going to conduct an offensive in this part of this area of operations for Army Group North. So, course of action Bravo is to take Leningrad. I was going to sneak at least one Panzer Corps down here. I would pick one of these Panzer Corps that are refitting, getting all those supplies. So annoying. Let's just do this. Partisans have not relented there. They just pop up everywhere. Thankfully, that's all you have to do. But, of course, they know exactly. They have a map of the entire rail network, and they always end up landing on at least one or two rail hexes, and Oh, they didn't remain in place long enough to damage the rail. Amazing. That's good. Ah, they did. Come on. Good lord. I'll show you what I mean. So these little blemishes in our rail network happen when the partisans plop themselves along our rail line. To be expected. It's annoying, but look at that's a pretty healthy logistics network right now. Look at that. We have come a long, oh my God, we have come a long way, have we not? Since 1941, June 22nd, 1941. We have come a long way. Look at the green. The supplies are flowing to the front, except when the rail lines get broken. So with that, on that note, while we're on the topic of rail lines, I have pulled back the 4 railroad repair engineer units from the front, and now their job is to be a rail repair fire brigade. Units rushing to repair broken rail lines where the Soviets have, the partisans have done their damage. Because our railheads have made it to the front, essentially. Army Group South has always been the redheaded stepchild as far as having railroad repair engineers, so we still have rail lines that can reach pretty much our entire front, a healthy rail network. There's just one that extends here, and I have a railroad repair engineer that is going to work his way down through here, because our 1942 offensive, well, I would love it to be as dynamic and fast, the op tempo to be as fast, as rapid, our advances to be as rapid as 1941, but probably not, because we're looking to not land grab, but to destroy Soviet formations. So I don't really need them at the front, trailing behind long stretches of broken rail lines to repair behind our advancing forces, because that's not going to happen. I may pull back 1 or 2 if, if we're fortunate enough and we have a good breakthrough to repair the closest rail line that is following up behind our advancing forces. So we'll consider that. All right. So it's been 3 turns. Let's go back. It's been 3 turns, and I wanted to give you an update and maybe talk some preliminary strategy for our offensive. I already talked about course of action Bravo, which would be taking Leningrad. The argument for that is it would shorten our lines. It would secure us almost 80 victory points. It would take this massive hub, supply hub and rail hub, away from the Soviets. And I was looking into the constraints that the Finns are having right now. If I occupy Leningrad, then that frees up the Finns so they can spring into action, and oh, I love my Finns. I can't wait to have my Finns attacking alongside their German brothers. So there's one argument. We already know the arguments to not try to take Leningrad. Terrain is obviously one of them, and getting stuck in Leningrad should the Soviets retreat quick enough to start taking up defensive positions, because unfortunately, look at this. It's stupid. Look how defensible the approaches to Leningrad are. A whole bunch of rough, constricted avenues of approach for any mechanized forces, and all kinds of nasty swamps and rivers and forests. Heavy woods even. You don't see heavy woods very often. There's only a couple places where you see heavy woods. So light woods, it affects our mechanized forces, but not to a great extent. So let's look at our forces here. The obvious point, our Schwerpunkt, would be right at Pskov. And if I could sneak a Panzer Corps or two up here without the Soviets recognizing the danger, could kind of have a sneak attack. And definitely our infantry, we know how well our infantry can do in good weather. I know I could definitely pry open maybe a 30 to 40, even a 50-mile gap our two Panzer Corps could pour through. Probably have to bypass Pskov or brute force attack it. Time is of the essence. And maybe by the first week, get 60 to 70 miles behind the Soviet lines. In the second week, barring any rushed in Soviet forces, be on the approaches of Leningrad by week 2 of the offensive. Our infantry, they can cover some ground, so I would have a follow-on infantry corps, at least two, held in, maybe one held in reserve, and the other one would be, committed to attack, but also contribute as a reserve as well to follow behind and establish that corridor. So by week 3 of an offensive, we could have infantry probably north of Novgorod. I'm being optimistic, but it's possible. But we could spread out our 3 Panzer Corps to hold the corridor open, and we could rush in infantry, because obviously we're not taking Leningrad with tanks. We need our infantry to do the job. That's where it gets sticky, and I don't like the scenario. I don't like the war game thinking about it, because I can see our tanks stalling at the approaches to Leningrad. All the Soviets have to do is plop a couple of infantry divisions, and they have 1,000 or more divisions, exaggerating, but they have plenty of roadblocks. All they have to do is defend here, and it will completely stall our tanks. So we would have to bypass. And how do we bypass? There's all these swamps here. So again, really, tanks would only help us up until we reach the rough terrain, and then the infantry has to seal the deal. So I could see us getting stuck in. I could see us not taking Leningrad, and I could see two Panzer Corps out of position, really ineffective. Meanwhile, all kinds of things could be happening along Army Group Center's area of operation, Army Group South's area of operations. I would say course of action Bravo is kind of a gamble, but something has to be done about this. Maybe one Panzer Corps and strong infantry to just reach the coast, the Gulf of Finland, and isolate maybe 15 to 20 Soviet kind of throwaway divisions for them. No real loss to them, but still a loss. And that would shorten our lines and kind of establish the front that we had. What is this? I can't read that. I just noticed another delimiter. Huh. Okay. Anyways, that might be what we're going to do instead. And you know, we can use a railroad to usher up another Panzer Corps should we have staggering success. The alternate course of action to just cut off the forces in this Talonin region and then reestablish our front. So we're probably going to do that anyways. And yeah. All right. We'll think about that. We'll mull over that. And primary course of action would be to create our own pocket. Like we were talking about past couple of videos, there's really, looking at the front, there's really no natural projection for us to get to have a good jumping off point to start the early stages of an encirclement. The front doesn't help us out. It's pretty much straight. So we're gonna have to create our own. And I was thinking of a grand encirclement. This is probably out of the realm of possibility. Attacking one pincer, the northernmost pincer would commence this attack here, push through, take Velikai Luki, and then do a southern turn, establish defensive front to the north of Velikai Luki, and then start to attack down north of Smolensk, and we would, the northernmost pincer would meet the southern pincer at right around Vyazma. And where would the southernmost pincer start? Well, let's look at the Bryansk area. So the front is very thin here. I think this is probably the thinnest portion of the Soviet front other than in Army Group North's area of operations. And we already naturally have our a couple Panzer Corps, 3 actually, in this vicinity. And the strongest pincer would definitely be the southern one. We would break out in the Bryansk area, attack north, and meet up at Vyazma. I think it's out of the realm of possibility for at least two reasons. One, the density of the Soviet defenses. That would make it hard for the northernmost pincer to break through fast enough, and the terrain is very difficult, so the Soviets would have great opportunity to defend and thwart the northernmost pincer. I think we'd be wildly successful with the southernmost pincer. I really think we could succeed and have a significant breakout in this part of the front. So, what would that look like? I'm only dreaming right now. Here's Velikai Luki. Here's Bryansk. So just look at, let's, from here to here, look at the concentration of Soviet forces. Again, I'm dreaming. Imagine an encirclement of that size. That would be war-ending because there would be nothing in front of Moscow. While that was happening, oh boy, we'd have to hold the line, but, we held the line during the 1941 winter special rule that Soviet winter offensive, and we held the line. We survived, and we did great in the snow, and just imagine how well we will defend and hold the line in good weather. So I'm not concerned about the flanks of such an encirclement. I just think it's reaching too far An encirclement too far, too grand. It just, I don't think it's in the cards. So coming down here, so where else could we break out in the north? Well, the next natural place would be Vitebsk. We avoid these rough areas to attack through, and these swamps and these rivers and these woods, and the lines are relatively thin right around Vitebsk. Again, infantry would have to pry it open, establish a corridor, and then really put the pressure on and force these Soviet formations to either attack, which we'd kind of welcome. We want them to not retreat because we want to form a pocket. And we'd have a shorter march to Vyazma. It looks a lot more reachable from Vitebsk, doesn't it? As to Veliky Luki area. Definitely a lot shorter. And if the northernmost pincer could pull that off and breaking through Bryansk, I think it could be so rapid, the southernmost pincer, that they could do the bulk of the work and really force the Soviets to not retreat east, but to retreat north and east to start the formation of that pocket. So what would that give us? Still a sizable chunk of Soviet forces. Look at all those tank divisions and brigades hanging out in here. That is course of action Alpha, and I think we're going to try that. I have to think on it. You know, there's other arguments to continue the offensive in the south. We could have our way with the forces in the south, but what's that going to give us? What's that going to achieve for us? We're not taking the pressure off Army Group North, and we're just going to extend the lines again with Army Group Center. But I think as far as opposition, we would face the lightest opposition from roughly Kursk down. And so we could get those cities that we utterly failed to take in 1941. And again, we're not trying to win the war in 1942. We just want that killing blow and position ourselves as far as causing casualties to Soviets and also getting to the cusp of that 290 victory points to get that auto victory. So if we took these cities, it almost nets, well, it does, it nets more than we would get taking Leningrad. It's good to talk this out, because now I'm saying, well, as enormous an effort it might be to take Leningrad, just think of the ground we would have to cover, the fuel we'd have to expend, and the lines that would have to stretch should we attack in Army Group South's area of operations. Another fantastical idea was to break out again right around Bryansk and Kursk area, where it's kind of light, and we have 3 to 4 Panzer Corps there already, and race down to Rostov and seal off almost a half of the Soviets' front. But that would mean getting through this swampy area, crossing the Dnieper, and cutting them off from the Crimea, because the Soviets could easily retreat their forces down here, and we wouldn't really be able to encircle and destroy them. So there are not obvious options, at least not to me, because I want my cake and eat it too. I want to get victory points I want to destroy Soviet formations, but the priority is 1942 to destroy Soviet formations. And so I think it's going to be course of action Alpha, creating our own pocket and taking advantage of the Soviets' massive buildup in front of Moscow, getting an encirclement. Some of the benefits to that is we have our mightiest forces centralized. Should things go south, we could react either going north or south to any trouble spots, rather than having all the bulk of our offensive, the bulk of our combat power tied up down here, way out of reach, unable to do anything else for Army Group Center or Army Group North. It's not so bad if we were attacking and trying to take Leningrad. We'd still be out of position. The bulk of our combat power would be up here, far removed from any kind of assistance or opportunity in Army Group Center and Army Group South. And you know what? In 1941, we had the most success in Army Group Center's area of operations, despite not receiving the bulk of our Panzer Corps. And our supply lines will be shorter if we conduct offensive and an offensive in Army Group Center's area of operations. Easier to repair the rail lines, concentrate on that, not having to worry about having our supply network span the entire front. Although right now it's looking like that, doesn't it? I just like looking at that. Look at all that green. That's great. So these are the things to ponder over the next, what I am guessing, 3 weeks at the very least. I believe all of April will be mud weather. So give us a time to shuffle our lines, pull some troops out of line, refit, and position them to at some jumping off points to conduct the offensive. I had said I had said maybe it's not the best idea to start the spring summer offensive on an epic scale, like go all in, but to get some like operational encirclements that really can be a gut punch to the Soviets and put us in very good position as 1942, looking down the road, moves into fall and winter. And maybe it's more, maybe bite-sized chunks instead of one incredible mouthful is easier to swallow. Kind of an odd analogy, but I think you know what I mean. All right, so probably the next time we'll come on with some content. It will be more than likely May. I may bring up, put up another video if I have definitely determined on what, dead set on what the course of action is going to be, and we can look at that where I've arrayed the forces and go over some plans and considerations, both good and bad. Oh boy. I guess there's just too many options right now. We got to settle on one. So, a lot to think about. Yep, there's almost too many options for us to consider. I have to settle on one. I think all of them are viable, except maybe the attacking in the south. I don't think I want to do that. Yeah. I'm just thinking how much fuel will be spent. I mean, If we break out and there's no one in front of us, it's gonna, all our fuel will just be used reaching these objectives. I like a more compact offensive. Yep, so I think it's gonna be either Army Group Center, which I'm leaning towards about 80%, and that 20% going all in for Leningrad, but I think it will be, I don't want to say it's a half measure, but it'll probably be a limited offensive in the north to at least reach the Gulf of Finland, cut off these Soviets, and establish a front. Straighten our lines. My God, it's bent completely. Straighten our lines here. Okay, and then again, if that works out, we have stunning success, then definitely Leningrad. It'd be great to take Leningrad. Really would. I wouldn't say we could sit on our hands after that, but we wouldn't have to do much more as far as victory points. Definitely have to think on this some more. Oh boy, what is that? Why is he out of supply? I went through with a fine tooth. Oh, we did a lot of organizing here, and I didn't organize so well. Why is he out of... Oh, you know why? He would be in supply, but it's mud now, so... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, I did have him right. I did have him... That was correct. Command and control there. It's just mud, so the distances are reduced for command and control and supply during mud. It's a lot harder to get supplies to the front when there's a sea of mud to go through. Yeah, there's really nothing to do during these mud weeks. All right, I think I've rambled enough. I just wanted to bring this up, show you where we're at. This is another milestone, another turning point in the war. We've made it through the winter. We've largely come, I wouldn't say come unscathed through the 1941 offensive. For the Soviets, we lost a lot of terrain. I wouldn't say lost, we withdrew. We withdrew and, oh gosh. Yeah, I just saw this. This is the fourth time 3 Soviet tank brigades have come through here to, I don't know what they were trying to do. And this is a 4th time, so 3 times we did a deliberate attack, and 3 times we either shattered or routed all 3 of the tank brigades. Now it's mud, so we're not going to be able to do that. Consequently, they're not going to be able to do anything. I don't want to leave. I don't want to pull these troops back, because this gives a nice jumping off point, because this is where our northernmost pincer would start. Look at the defense in depth there. Could be localized. I mean, we wouldn't have to move far to encircle, geez, 20, 25, even 30 divisions in a small area. So it doesn't, terrain-wise, the encirclements don't have to be that grand in scope. All right, so I will probably for the next 3 weeks do a lot of admin, a shuffling of the front, and positioning forces for the offensive. All right, I hope you enjoyed this update. I am oh so looking forward to starting the offensive, and boy, it's kind of neat how this shaped up and what the offensive is going to look like and how it will turn out. And it's all going to depend on where I decide to conduct that offensive. All right, thank you for watching. This is First Fire Non-Assault Move out.